So I guess today's video is supposed to be about what you would tell your younger self, and I figure that since Brandon is also queer, we can kind of both talk about it, but I'll try and keep the main focus on trans stuff. But I mean, there's similarities for sure. So one of the things that I would tell my younger self is not to rush coming out. I think it's really good to come out when you're ready. There's no reason to stop yourself just because you feel like it's not socially acceptable or whatever. Like, I would never say don't come out because of that. But just in my situation, I never even pondered waiting. I never even thought about the idea that maybe I could just dress the way I wanted to dress and change my name with my friends and stuff like that without telling at least my mom. I told my mom at first. And I guess I really needed that support, and I really was pretty convinced that I wanted to medically transition, and I knew that she had to know about it for that to be able to happen because I was about 15 years old at the time. So, like, I never pondered not telling her, but then when I did, she was initially supportive, and then it really went downhill, and I had to deal with a lot of horrible stuff that I probably wouldn't have had to deal with if I hadn't been so forthcoming about my gender identity. If I had just been, their kid who kind of liked wearing more masculine clothes and maybe liked shorter haircuts and stuff like that, I don't think they would have had a problem with it. I think it was just the idea that I was trans that they just couldn't deal with. And so they wanted to sort of keep me from doing anything masculine and try and push me into doing more feminine things. And that was a terrible, horrible time for me. And so if I hadn't come out to her, if I had waited maybe until I was 17 or 18 instead of 15, I think it would have been a lot better. Do you have any thoughts about when you came out? Would you have changed it?
I think so. I think I don't know. I don't know if I would have ever came out, to be quite honest, because I was kind of outed. So
Right.
I don't know if I would have ever came out until I left the house. I think that's kind of like a stereotypical kind of thing that you hear. But I think I actually would have done that.
Also, I wouldn't focus so much on the idea of sort of the South as this terrible, horrible place that I need to get out of immediately, because I spent junior and senior year of high school planning about how I was going to go to college in the Northeast, because that was like the Mecca and it was going to be perfect and everyone was going to be wonderful, and I needed to get out of the South because everyone was terrible. And like, that's just not true. There's a lot of wonderful people in the South, and there's a lot of terrible people in the Northeast. And I think there's also like a benefit to staying in a less supportive area, because when you're in that place where you can be support for other people, then like I think that's great. And I think I would tell myself, you'll eventually get to that point where you can be, I mean, even be out in the South. Like, I'm way more comfortable being out as trans than I used to be. And so maybe that's something I'd tell myself too, because I always saw myself as, okay, I'll get medical transition, and as soon as I can, I'm going stealth forever. So the last thing on my list is that I would have told my younger self to speak up more uh, around teachers. As far as like, one of my biggest regrets is not asking my teachers to call me by the right name and pronouns. I came out to a couple teachers after graduation just because they were teachers that I really liked and I was close to, but I didn't tell them when I guess coming back for my junior year, I knew that I was trans. I knew that I was a guy. I knew I wanted to go by Michael and by male pronouns. But again, having too much faith in my mother, I asked her, because I was too worried that if I did it without her permission, she would find out and would get mad at me. So I asked her. We had a lovely extended conversation about it, where she got very close to saying yes several times, and then ultimately came to the conclusion that she was not comfortable with it. And so instead, I just went by my initials. I asked my teachers to do that much, but I would tell my younger self that you don't get to do high school again. Hopefully you don't have to. But you don't get that experience again, and I would tell my younger self to just, I lied about so much other stuff that had to do with being trans. Like, my parents wouldn't let me bind for the longest time, and I pretended like I wasn't, and then I would leave the house and pull my binder up. So, like, I lied about that because I had to for my own mental health. And so I would tell my younger self to add coming out to your teachers as another thing on that list of justifiable things to, keep quiet to your parents about, because I think ultimately my high school experience would have been even better than it was if I had had teachers who were, because essentially my teachers didn't really know me. Like, my friends called me by the right name and pronouns. The majority of them did, but like, my teachers knew somebody who wasn't really me. And then also speaking up more about correcting people on name and pronouns during high school. I kind of had that feeling that I think a lot of trans people have, that like, you're less legitimate and therefore you have less of a right than cis people to correct people when they, get your name wrong or get your pronouns wrong. And so I would tell my younger self that you have just as much of a right as a cis man to say, actually, I'm a guy, when people misgender you. So yeah, I've spit on my face from where you licked me. Anyway, I guess that's probably the top advice and comments and information that I would give to younger me. And yeah, I'm glad we did this topic. It's really interesting. It's been interesting to think about like the things that I would have changed, and to imagine what my life would be like now if I could go back and tell me that and then come back to now. I feel like it would be better. So yeah, I guess I'll see you guys next week.
Bye.